Houston. Welcome to Keys of Houston Recovery Podcast. We got Darrel and we got Mr. Tim Rowlands. And you want to introduce yourself, my friend?
My name is Tim Rowlands. I'm with the K.E.Y.S of Houston organization. I've been doing this for a while with Mr. Sims, and I'm just glad to be here.
All right. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. Hey, my name is Jimmy Miller, better known as Jack. Everybody calls me Jack.
What's up, Jim?
Hey, how's it going, y'all? And I am currently on the podcast with the Keys of Houston. Mr. Darrel Sims, Mr. Timothy Rowlands. I love you guys, and just grateful to be here.
So the reason I wanted to highlight you, man, because you really stood out when you was in the program, man. One thing I never forget is how you would always come up to me and recite the phone number. Man, I'm going to get in touch with you. I'm going to get in touch with you. And, you know, that showed me something, you know. It showed me you want to do something different with your life, man. I'm so proud of you, man. So we had to walk alongside you all the way, man. One thing I want you to know that time take time, you know. Don't rush through this process because this is a process. It's not a sprint, it's a journey. But all the while, you know, may God continue to work in your life, my friend. So I want to ask you a little bit about telling you what stood out. Tell us what stood out to you in this program. What made this program special to you? What made you want to do something different with your life?
Hearing your story and, you know, basically seeing that anybody can do it. Anybody could change from their past, no matter what.
It is Mr. Rowlands. When I heard my story, he said anybody can do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, he was an F-up. That's why. He was an F-up.
All right.
Well, you know, I just seen that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I knew recovery was possible.
Good.
I've seen people who had problems and got their life together, but I didn't see anybody not only get their life together, but use their life as not a hindrance, but to help, you know, to turn their past into passion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to really change the hearts and minds of others. You know, it's one thing to recover. It's another thing to help others recover. And that's what I thought. That's what really stood out to me. Is like, yeah, I could do this. You know, I definitely want to be better. I definitely want to do better. I want to change. And, but I would also like to be able to give back and help others because, you know, I've taken so much of my life. I've done a lot of the devil's work, and now it's time for me to do God's work. And I believe that this program is inspired by God, and I believe it's the pathway to success.
I believe in you.
Hey, thank you, bro.
Yeah.
And you know what? That would it take to be that peer specialist, that peer leader, you know, because your story is your strength, you know, and that's the biggest part of this, man. When we work with others, can we offer them something that's relatable, you know?
Right.
And it don't just have to be drugs and alcohol. It could be lifestyle, you know.
Right.
It could be what brought you through this, you know. Whatever it is, you know, you have what it takes, man. But you just have to find how to present it to others now. So without any further ado, man, let's hear what brought you to this point.
Okay, so, well, when I was in jail, obviously, I had life-changing experience, a divine moment, a spiritual awakening, they call it, right? So I had a spiritual awakening, and that's when I signed up for the program. And once I got in the program, I really didn't know what to expect. You know, I just knew that I wanted something different, and this was the only opportunity that I had in jail at the time to be able to try something different and see something different. So when I got put in the program, it was multiple different counselors at this point because I wasn't in your class at this point. I was in the new light, the basic one, I guess you would call it, not the advanced. You know what I mean? All right. So when I was in there, and then when I met you and heard your story and seen what you were doing, and you told me that I could do it too, I believed you. And I knew from that moment, like, okay, this is what God wanted me to see. This is what he wanted me to do. was this is my way that I can not only change and better my life, but help others as well. And continue to do work, God's work and do good work to enrich other people's lives.
So I want to ask you to do something. I want you to
Yes, sir.
get uncomfortable. I want you to relax and let it flow, man. Because this here ain't no perfect answer, man. We don't have to be perfect on this podcast, man.
Yeah.
But I want to get to a point that you feel comfortable sharing your story. This is about you today, man. I know you shared your background with me, and I know that you have a powerful testimony. And without a test, we don't have a testimony. And one of the things I know that if God brought you to it, he'll bring you through it.
Yeah.
That's right.
So let your hat out, man. Let's rock and roll, Jimbo.
All right. Where do I start? I mean, I guess we'll start from the beginning. So I was literally born an addict. Both of my parents were both addicts, and along with the majority of my family in one form or another, whether it be alcohol or drugs or both, I had some type of substance abuse problem. And I was born into that. So basically, we were living in Louisiana. My mom and dad were together at this time. He was working offshore on the oil rigs, and he was scheduled to come back in for my birth. I was supposed to be born on December 5th, which just so happened to be his birthday. And they were going to do what's called a C-section, all right? Induced labor, do a C-section. Well, he came back, obviously a few days early. And on December 3rd, they were doing cocaine, getting high to the point where my mom went into labor. So they had to do an emergency C-section, and I was born on December 3rd. Obviously born with drugs in my system that they couldn't release me to my mom. They had to release me to my grandmother. She came and picked me up, and I left. I guess I stayed with her. I was a baby. I don't really, know all this as much, but I stayed with her for a while until I guess maybe my mom. Well, actually, I stayed with her until my mom and dad split. And then when my mom and dad split, my mom actually came back to my grandmother's house, and that's when I was with her. Okay, so fast forward to my first memory basically would be I was 4 years old. And I remember sitting in between my mom and this other guy in the truck. And my mom telling me, we're going to play a game. I need you to put this bandana over your eyes and don't peek until I tell you can. If you do this, I'm going to give you these glasses. And they were like Coca-Cola glasses. I don't know. It's back in the 80s. It was like a little popular thing back then. They were basically red glasses with the word Coca-Cola wrote all over them in white. All right. So I put the bandana over my eyes and they put a tray on my lap and they started chopping up lines of cocaine. Now, I know this because if you do cover your eyes, you can look straight down and see what's going on in your lap. All right. I can see if you look straight down with a bandana over your eyes, you can see what's going on. So I can see them. And I remember even then at that age thinking to myself, like, ha, I know what they're doing and I'm still going to get the glasses. I don't know, maybe I was already born with this little deviant spirit, but I already knew that I was getting away with something. You know what I mean? So fast forward, I get the glasses. She takes me back to the apartment and she drops me off. All right. So she leaves. And then I guess a few hours later, the guy we were staying with shows up. He asked me where she was. And I told her she left with some guy. I mean, I'm 40 years old. I don't know really what I'm supposed to say at this point. Where I remember being woke up in the middle of the night with her waking me up, calling me a snitch, and taking the glasses back and her leaving. And I didn't see her again for like 2 years after that. So she left me there with the guy. The guy got a hold of my grandmother and she came and picked me up. All right. Fast forward a couple years later, she comes to my grandmother's house. We're in Texas at this point, and she comes to my grandmother's house telling me that she has a surprise for me that my dad wants to see me. Now, mind you, I've never even seen him before, never met him prior to being a baby. And, it was exciting. I'd never seen my dad. I wanted to see him. Well, she had this little Mickey Mouse doll that she's giving me. She had just got back from Disney World, and this is what she got for me. Well, I would fly from Houston to New Orleans, and I did this back and forth for until I was 7. So maybe 6 months to a year, somewhere in that little time, until my dad got in trouble for trafficking these pills. They're called K.E.Y.S. And that's just so happens what I was taking with me on these airport flights. So in that Mickey Mouse doll was 1,000 of these little pills. And I was doing this basically every weekend. Sometimes we would drive, but most of the time I would fly back and forth. And I did this every weekend until he got busted and went to jail. So I go back to my grandmother's after that when he gets caught. And again, my mom left. I didn't see her again for a year or so. I know I was 8, almost 9 years old whenever she finally came back. And then that's when, things started drastically changing. That's when I was introduced to weed. I was introduced to crime, to stealing. I remember being 8 years old and being at the store and wanting a candy bar. And my mom tell me, yeah, I can have it. Just put it in my pocket. So again, that was my little introduction. And it just escalated from there. I know another thing that we used to do, we would go to Walmarts and Kmart or whatever little stores that sold the reel from a fishing pole, from a rod and reel, the individual reel. And I would go in, I would steal the reel, come back out, and she would take it right back in and get the money for it. Back then, you didn't have to have receipts or they didn't give you a card, they would give you cash. So that was our little thing we would do for a while. And at this point, I'd already tried weed, and I remember, my mom bragging to her friends about how well I could roll a joint and having me roll them in front of, her friends. I would light it up. I went to jail my first time when I was 10 years old for stealing car stereos. She used to drive me around to apartments or whatnot. I would walk the apartment lot trying to find the radio that she would want, and I would steal it. Well, Christmas Eve, 3 weeks after my 10th birthday, I went to jail my first time. She just, when the cops pulled up, I was coming out of the car, and she just drove off and left me. I went to jail. So after that, at that point, we were staying in Bay City, Texas. After that, we moved to Houston. My grandfather had lost his job, and basically, our whole family moved to Houston. We all moved into this 2-bedroom apartment. It was my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunt, my uncle, my aunt's husband, her newborn, my mom's newborn, my little brother, and my other uncle. We all stayed in this little 2-bedroom. So it wasn't long after that, my mom winds up getting in trouble, going to prison. And I did good for the most part in school or whatnot. I would still smoke weed every now and then. I would, usually get it from my uncle. But I would still steal too. If I wanted something, I was still doing that. But it wasn't as bad as when she got out. When she got out, I was 13. I moved in with her, and things really went bad then. So the guy she was with before she went to jail was a drug dealer, and she just, I guess, linked back up with him when she got out. He put us up in this little apartment or whatever, and he would sell drugs to the guys that lived in the apartments. Well, he used to keep, he was married, so he never stayed there with us. He had his own little house or whatever. He used to come back and forth. But he would keep drugs there for his little customers around the apartments or whatever. Well, one day she decides to steal all his shit, or steal all his stuff, and then she left. I didn't see her again for a while, probably about a year. I know the first few months I stayed there at the apartment by myself until the lights got cut off, and then I wound up moving in with a friend of mine and his sister in the same apartment. But I stayed there for a few months until my aunt happened to find me outside one day, and she basically told me that everybody was looking for my mom and for me, that I had to go with her to my grandmother's house. So I wound up moving back into my grandmother's house. Probably a few months after that, my mom resurfaces. She cleared up everything with her parole or whatnot, and she needs me to go and stay with her. She asked me if I wanted to come stay with her. And of course, this is my mother. I love her to death, and whatever she has, whatever she wants, I'm gonna do it. So at that point, I was living with my grandparents, and it was just me and my grandparents. And they had a little home, a little house that they were renting, but it wasn't bad, and the neighborhood wasn't bad. So I left a pretty nice environment to move in with her in an abandoned apartment, a Baco. And, at that time her little hustle was in the street. She was a working girl, and she would go out and work, come back with the money or whatnot, give me the money to hold while she would go back out. So we're living in this little apartment, probably. I think it might have been 2 bedrooms. I think it was a 2 bedroom. Matter of fact, no, it definitely was a 2 bedroom. But again, there was no furniture. When I first got there, the lights were off. It was just 2 fold-out lawn chairs and an ice chest. And I remember sitting there in the dark with my Walkman. I mean, for days. I also remember times when me and her were getting a fist fight sometimes over the money because I wouldn't give it all back to her because I was hungry. I needed something to eat too, and I needed batteries for my Walkman, and I wanted some weed to smoke. So I'd keep some of the money, and like I said, we never would get into it sometimes over that. And not to say that it was always all bad. It wasn't always all bad, man. My mom was a good girl. I loved her to death. She just did what she could and did what she knew. She showed me what was going on in her life, and it made me strong, and it made me be able to survive anywhere. No matter what, no matter where I go, no matter what happens, I know I'm strong enough to get through it. I mean, I can make it in any situation. That's what she taught me. So, I love her to death. God rest her soul. She was a great woman, man. For the most part, she just had a problem, a drug problem, and that carried over to me. It wound up causing me to have a problem, and it wound up causing me to see a lifestyle and glorify a lifestyle that I shouldn't have. But it is what it is. So from that point, I started hanging with her dealer, and that's who I wound up joining the gang with, and really started getting heavier and stuff. I started selling crack. I would do what they call short stopping. And what that would mean is there was an apartment, I mean, there was a store in front of the apartments that I could hang out front, and just all the little small leagues, $5, $10 leagues, up to $20 or whatever, could just get the little work for me instead of having to go back into the apartment. He was trying to limit the traffic as much as possible in the apartments, right? So that's when I was introduced to hustling. I was still stealing and doing a little bullshit. At that point, yeah, at this point, I learned how to steal cars, and I used to steal cars. My mom used to drive me around looking for cars to steal. So that was a little hustle. And like I said, then I would hustle, sell, work and shit. I started doing a little bit heavier drugs. I was introduced to PCP, wet, whatever you want to call it. Acid. I took acid. I started trying powder, just powder, started, doing things. Stuff really, really went crazy when I remember going with my mom. She had one of her little tricks. She had this car, and we went to go score some dope. And the dude jumped in the back seat and was like, "Yeah, I got," she had $100 bill. She was trying to get a wholesale. So the dude jumped in the back seat and was like, "Yeah, pull up over here. I got you. I got you." Well, when she pulled up, he pulled out a gun and put it to her head. And I just remember like staring at him and the gun. And next thing I know, she was basically like, "Yeah, okay, okay, just calm down. I got it." And then she turned around and started stabbing him. Bam, bam, bam. So after that, I mean, it was pretty crazy, pretty wild little scene. After that, we wound up making the block. She told me to help him out. We pulled him out the car, and then she turned around and went right back to that spot actually, and still scored. Yeah, matter of fact, she even traded the gun for some more, and just so happened the gun was not loaded. Yeah, So once I seen that, and once I went through that, most people would have probably been shocked or scared or freaked out by it. But I'm not gonna lie, it excited me, and it gave me this feeling of invincibility. Like, shit, we did that, got away with it. I can do whatever I want. It's cool. So that really encouraged me to take things even further in my life. And that's when I really started going down a more violent, more dangerous path. Started doing drugs heavier. I used to have crazy dreams for a while after that, but yeah, man, things just like I said, I was hanging with her dealer, which he was probably 5 or 6 years older than me. He wasn't that much older than me. And he used to feel sorry for me. He would come over there to serve her, and like I said, I would be sitting in this little apartment on these little lawn chairs, and at that point, we didn't even have lights. We wind up getting lights later, pay somebody to hook the lights up for us later. But yeah, at first things were really, really bad. Well, I guess he would feel sorry for me, and I used to start riding with him. Again, that's when I got introduced to short stopping at the store and doing other things. I would steal cars for him and stuff sometimes, and then we got into home invasion. And I used to be the kid that would go knock on your door, get you to open the door, and then my partners would run up in the spot. I went on a little crime spree of armed robbery. I went from state to state, just sticking up stuff, robbing stuff, whether it be a gas station to a restaurant to a drug dealer, whatever. Whatever I needed or I wanted, I would just take it. And in my mind, I'm like, shit, what does it matter? If I get caught, I'm going to jail anyway, probably the rest of my life. So I just did whatever I wanted to do. And it wound up landing me in Florida. And I got jammed up on a robbery case in Florida and went to prison. And then come to find out, I wasn't even wanted for even questioning about the other stuff that happened. Like that just never anything happened about that, I guess. But yeah, man, after I was in prison there for like 2 years. After that, I was like, oh, this ain't nothing. I went to prison in a whole nother state where I didn't know anything or anybody, and I made it. Came out just fine. Matter of fact, I came out with the mindset of, oh yeah, I'm a gangster for real now, and I can really just do anything. Who cares if I go to jail? That ain't shit. It didn't deter me at all. It didn't change me at all. It made me worse, if anything. Yeah. So again, drugs is involved throughout all this. At that point, the thing I was really on the most was probably ecstasy. I would smoke weed daily, pop X pills daily, still smoke PCP sometimes. Yeah, I really didn't do the cocaine anymore, just because the guys I were hanging with didn't do it, and it just was, I guess, it was more of a bad look than anything. So I really just wasn't in that situation as much anymore. But yeah, it mattered though, man. I would just do whatever I wanted. No regard to consequence.
You say you hadn't, then at that moment, you hadn't learned anything,
No, not nothing changed me to want to do
nothing
better
changed you.
or be a better guy. Matter of
Mm,
fact, when I wasn't wanted with the other situation, I really was like, "Oh, this ain't nothing. Nothing's nothing." I wasn't worried about anything bad after
okay.
that point.
Yeah, I mean, cause you went through a lot, and like you said, this has made you tough and stronger and feeling like you can handle anything and, being
So,
invincible, you know. But what changed this time though?
okay, so I mean, don't get me wrong. From that point, again, like I said, I was just really worse. I went to prison multiple times after that. Was still involved in anything that would make a dollar, really,
Right.
from pimping on women to robbing to drug dealing. It didn't matter. Whatever I could do, I did it. I was basically a jack of all trades. I didn't care what it entailed. If it made some money, I was with it.
Mm,
Nothing scared me. I wasn't worried about anything. Was in, involved in the gang, so a lot came with that. Gang warfare, violent crime, and I mean, I don't wanna just go too deep into everything. It'd be a whole lot, but it was just a hard
yeah.
life, a gangster's life. And, basically, throughout all this, though, I had a great grandmother,
Okay.
you know? No matter what I did, no matter what I was going through, she would be there for me. and she was my support. She was my really a crutch, probably, because at the end of the day, I always knew in the back of my mind, well, no matter what happens or what goes wrong, I know I can call grandma. She
Right.
gonna tell me it's okay, and if I need anything, she would be there for me.
Yeah.
Well, this time, so my grandmother passed away. My mother passed away first, and I mean, it hurt really bad, especially the way she passed. I had to, basically take care of her. Me and my little brother had to be there to help her. I mean, she couldn't even eat or drink or anything in her last few days. We had to do everything for her, so it was just painful to watch that. And after that, when she passed, I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like I was still doing whatever I wanted to do. But once she passed, it really made me remember, like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to die young. I'm not going through all that. And, I'm in the streets. I'm gonna just live my life. And I always just figured I would die young. I never imagined I was gonna be this old, never make it this far.
Mm.
I was reckless, so reckless with everything, even driving. I always bought fast cars so I could race cars and go, do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
So I mean, just the countless situations I've been in. I've been shot multiple times. I've been in car wrecks that nobody should have walked away from, much yet not even have a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
even have a bump or a bruise. I mean, it was just crazy. So God's always had his hand on me for some reason, right? And but I never took heed, never cared, just kept pushing 90 miles an hour. A year later, after my mom died, my grandmother died. And that really, really hurt because at the end of the day, me and my mom were more like brother and sister. You know, she was young when she had me, but she really never grew up. You know what I mean? She was young minded all her life, all my life. So we were more like friends, close, close friends. Don't get me wrong. Like I said,
Mhm.
like a brother and sister. But my
Yeah.
grandmother was more like my mom. That was my lady. That was the one I looked towards when I needed things or when I needed help or when I needed questions answered or, she was the one. Well, she passed a year after my mom did, which was 2022.
Yeah.
And after that, of course, I was in the streets at that point too, don't get me wrong, but not as bad. At that time I was living with my brother and I was still doing drugs or whatnot and little petty shit here and there, but I was still pretty much maintaining doing
Doing what you
better.
do.
Like,
Yeah.
right. But just doing better. I wasn't into the violent crimes and, robberies and doing all that crazy stuff anymore. But after she died, that's when it was really like, well, that's it. I have other family, aunts and uncles and whatnot, but
Mhm.
but they keep their distance, which is
Yeah.
understandable. They're not bad people, even though they all have their own little addiction problems. They're not criminals and they don't, they're not in and out of jail and doing crazy stuff. So they don't want me around for those reasons for the most part. Like I said, it's
Right.
understandable. I mean, they're not people I would want to be around anyway. You know what I mean? I'm living this way, y'all living that way. We're not even nowhere near the same path. So what do we have in common for? What do we had to kick it with about anyway?
Jim,
So
let me ask you something. Through all you've been through, what is one thing that you take away from all this? What is one thing that you value the most? One thing that you just hang your hat on because, you know, what I heard you talk about was a lifestyle that you were really like born into. A lot of people are born to a lifestyle, right? I'm
right,
talking about the drug, the whole atmosphere. Then the relationship with your mom, that was a special bond, and that's only you can understand that. You know what I mean? You're someone who's been through that similar lifestyle, but you know, in all of that, from the witnessing of her stabbing the guy and then having to take care of her, and all the things that you learned from your mom. 'Cause you learn a lot from her, right?
You know,
Yeah.
everything.
So
My
what is
whole
your
life.
one thing you take away or you cherish the most?
Now or then?
Now,
Now,
I'm sure it changed.
Now I cherish my relationship with God the most. That's what means the most to me. It's like, so let me just again, after my grandmother died, I really went on a little downward spiral, and I really didn't care, and I was just living just for the day, for the moment, every day, and I wind up finding myself back in jail. And in the situation I was in jail wasn't a bad one. I didn't feel like I was facing a lot of time or I had anything really heavy over my head. But the fact that I couldn't call my grandmother, it hit a hard little nerve. It really started making me question my life, started making me question what I'm doing. Why am I even still here? I have no kids, never been married, no family of my own. I only have my little brother, the only guy that even really cares about me. And I was just like, man, I'm nothing. I basically at that point, and I never really felt like this before. I'm not gonna lie, I was a pretty arrogant, narcissistic person. Like I always looked at myself like I'm that guy, and you should feel honored to be in my presence. You know what I mean? Like I was really felt like I was him. And at that point, I felt like I was nothing, like I was nobody. I had nothing and I wasn't worth nothing. And I just literally wasted my whole life. I didn't expect to even make it this far. So at that time, I contemplated suicide. I really thought about it like, why even do this to myself anymore? Who cares? There's nothing in life I want. There's nothing in life that matters to me anymore. I've done everything I wanted to do, I guess, in my mind, and who cares if I'm live or die? So why put myself through the rest of this life if it's gonna be like this, right? And that was what was on my mind. And then I had this dream, and it was a crazy dream. I don't know how to explain it because I wasn't asleep, but it was like I went into this dream-like state, even though I was awake, sitting on my bunk. And even when I came out of that state, I thought I had been asleep. And I was like, I was just felt shocked, like weird, like what? I'm sitting straight up in my bed and I thought I had just woken up. And I even asked my neighbor, like, hey man, was I asleep? What was going on? He's like, I feel like I just woke up. Like I just had this crazy wild dream. He was like, no, you've been sitting up this whole time. I was like, wow. So
Well, a
I had this
spiritual awakening, man.
a spiritual awakening, exactly.
Yeah.
And God basically told me that I love you. And what more do you need? Who else's love do you need? Who else do you need to be alive for more than me? And I have a plan for you and I have a purpose for you. You're going to do great things for me. You have a job ahead of you. Hang in there. He also told me not to worry. I wasn't going back to prison, that I would be home soon, that I have a plan for you in the dream. It was crazy. And sure enough, after that, at that point, I was still kind of getting high every now and then while I was in jail. I would smoke the K2 sometimes or whatever. But at that moment, I knew, like, know what? All right, this is it. Now I know that this is bigger than me. That I'm just so worried about myself, but it's bigger than me. And God really say He want me to do something, He got a plan for me. Who am I to tell Him no? And who am I to end my own life whenever I have something I got to do for Him?
I can
That's
so
what
much
woke me
relate to
up.
that,
That's what
Jim, because
changed.
I was in that pod that you was in, my pod, 48 years old, man. And, I look at my life that everything I touched tarnished. And God came to me and revealed something to me, because I had questions like, why me? I really ain't out there wronging people. I'm out here doing what I do, you know what I mean? You know, hustling and shit, but I ain't really wronging nobody, right? And I said, why me, God? And man, He revealed to me that passage footprint in the sand. He said, I never abandoned you. You abandoned me. And man, that woke me up, and it made me think about all the times that I just got by when they come to the trap house and I'm just leaving, right? So many things happening in my life and I'm just getting by. All the times I think it's me. But like God said, I never abandoned you. You abandoned me. Those times when I thought I saw only one footprints in the sand. That's what he was carrying me. You know what I mean? Man, it was so powerful for me to go through that, man, because I've had a lot of challenges. But one thing been constant is his unwavering love for me, right? No matter what I've gone through, God always been there, man. And man, until we can see it through those lenses, through those pair of glasses, man, we can't see the truth for the false. We think we got this shit. I'm doing this shit, right? Well, there's always somebody who reigns supreme, and it's not you or I. And that was one of the biggest turning points for me, man, at 48 years of age, man, wanting to do something different with my life. And sometimes we got to sit still. Because as long as I've been out here on the street, them, running and gunning,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have found that, man.
Never
Found it,
right.
man. I had to sit
There's too
still.
much going on. It's too much stuff going
I had to
on.
sit still, man. I had to go to timeout, man. And when I was in timeout and things started happening, man, I can see things clearly now, man.
Right.
And I ain't found it necessary to take a drink, do any drugs, or commit any crime since 2008, man.
Yeah.
Man, God's
Amen.
good, man.
God's great.
He's forgiving, man. One thing I learned, they told me, if they put you in a program, I don't care if it's NACAA, anything beat the DA. You know what I mean?
Hey, yeah.
So I ain't had to go in front of the DA. I don't do the programs as much, man, but what I have is some peace, man. And that's what we gonna find in this life, man. Submit a peace, man. We can leave that chaos alone. We can be happy, joyous, and free. We can find the relationships we want. And guess what? We get to pick and choose today what relationship we want to be a part of or not. And I had to do a simple fix, Jim. Put the drugs and alcohol down. I put that down, my life changed 360, man. Full circle.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful, man, because I get to meet people like you and Mr. Rollins and, do shit that I never dreamed imaginable. Man.
Right.
Man, you got a powerful story, man.
Yeah, man.
Working on the book. I am going to put a book together and I will share more and really show you the extent of a wild life and how you can go from one to the other. You
Yeah.
know, you
Well,
can change, man. Recovery possible and a great life is possible. But I will say this, it doesn't work without God.
no.
Nah.
It does
What?
not work without
Yeah.
God. You can go to
It don't
1,000
work. It don't work if you don't put into action either.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
That's
See,
very true.
you can ask God to help you dig a hole and he'll give you a shovel, but he ain't gonna do the work.
That's right.
So that means I gotta do something on my end.
But watch this.
Yeah.
You can want to dig that hole, but without God, you'll never get that shovel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 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 just know that with everything we do, that's some work. We got to put forth
Yep.
some effort, man.
That's right.
Like I tell everybody, man, they be like, "How much time you got clean?" And I try not to tell them. I say, just know this: sitting on side of me ain't gonna get you clean. You know,
I know that's right.
you know,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to
Yeah.
do what it takes for you to stay clean. Because I'm doing it every
That's
day. What it takes for me, you know. But what I've learned, man, is that everybody's afforded opportunity. Now, what you do with that opportunity is up to you.